In a season that has gone from bad to worse, the NFL fines Panthers owner David Tepper over $300,000 after throwing a drink towards Jaguars fans on Sunday. The brand new professional women's hockey league debuts to sell out crowds and very steep and hard to get in for tickets. The CFP delivers two great games and delivers on television. And what are some of the biggest stories that we'll be following in 2024? It's our first show of 2024 on Press Row Live here on Coast to Coast Entertainment, going live right now.
Suzanne's Paparazzi Jewelry, 24/7 shopping available. 160920 is the code. Show her some love, like she showed us. K&A Custom Crafts on Facebook.
It's the first show of 2024 for Press Row Live on the Coast to Coast Entertainment Network. Coming at you for the next hour, talking all of the big sports world stories viewed from the angle from the sports media and sports business side of operations on our first program on this Wednesday afternoon. Coming at you a half hour early on this January 3rd, 2024 already. Goodness gracious. Welcome in, folks. Callan McClurg joining you today, as usual, from our home studios here in San Diego, California, hoping you and yours had a tremendous holiday season and, above all else, a great start to your 2024 and the new year here, as mentioned on this Wednesday afternoon, January 3rd, 2024. Again, folks, we teased on Instagram a couple days ago, actually, matter of fact, just yesterday, about our updated program schedule. But again, we're still keeping things under wraps right now as we work out some of the kinks and bugs and get some more people on board as more time does go on. But of course, folks, here on Press Row, we of course come at you Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, and sporadically on Fridays at around 3 o'clock or 3:30 Pacific time. And again, we talk all the big sports news, though, but from the angles given from sports media and sports business perspectives here on our program here on Coast to Coast Entertainment. Again, Callan McClurg joining you here from the home studios in San Diego. And again, wishing you and yours a tremendous start to the new year. With that in mind, folks, we'll get into our first big story, and one that really, I think, blew up over the weekend while we were, of course, away for a bit. But with no real precedent, the NFL has officially fined Panthers team owner David Tepper $300,000 for the viral video that has, of course, gone viral of his drink toss after his team was clobbered by Jacksonville just a couple of days ago. But as of Wednesday and earlier in the week, though, the NFL has officially announced their intention to fine Panthers team owner David Tepper $300,000 after he was shown on video appearing to toss a drink from his suite towards Jaguars fans on Sunday. Tepper was sitting in a suite at Everbank Stadium where the Panthers lost 26-0 to the Jaguars on Sunday. The NFL called the owner's conduct unacceptable, saying in part via a pre-release statement that all NFL personnel are expected to conduct themselves at all times in ways that respect our fans and favorably reflect on their team and the NFL. Open and close quote. Furthermore, David Tepper, in a separate statement, said he regrets his behavior, accepting his punishment, and saying that, quote unquote, he says that he should have let NFL stadium security handle any issues that arose, open and close quote. This is not, though, folks, the first time that we have seen an owner actually fined for conduct of this magnitude in regards to having a brouhaha or scuffle with fans. Back in 2009, the late Titans owner, Bud Adams, was popped $250,000 by the league for making an obscene gesture towards a fan. There was no precedent for a team owner throwing a drink at a fan, but some fans have been banned for life, though, from NFL stadiums for similar acts. The issue with Tepper, though, is the latest black guy of a very ongoing rough saga that has seen the billionaire hedge fund manager who bought the Panthers back in 2018, but has not seen a winning season during his tenure. Tepper first fired first-year head coach and longtime NFL quarterback Frank Reich after only 11 games this season. Between both entities of the Panthers and MLS's Charlotte FC, Tepper has fired 5 head coaches between the two clubs. The Panthers will surely finish with the worst record in the NFL this season, but the Chicago Bears own that top overall draft pick, which will be first overall thanks to a trade made for last year's number 1 pick, which the Panthers used on Alabama quarterback Bryce Young. Panthers players and coaches were available for media availability today on Wednesday, but no comment was further made while the Panthers play their final game of the season at home against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I saw the video, and I do not condone this act whatsoever, because if we have seen fans lose the privilege, not the right, the privilege to go to sporting events as a spectator, you know your P's and Q's. But I do believe, though, that David Tepper's actions warranted a fine, maybe even a suspension, but not anything like selling the club again or any of that sort of stuff, though. But certainly discipline had to be given out, though, for an owner's actions, where, again, I think the NFL statement said it right, though, that you would expect your ownership, your owners out there, the guys who run this operation alongside the commissioner's office, you would expect them to be professional, even though that the year may not be that great. Now, I can probably maybe see one small little detail: the frustration of how bad of a year it's been for the Carolina Panthers. And I know firsthand that losing for me, or if I see my team lose that I work for, it does sting a bit and maybe does stay in your head for longer than it should. Having been an athlete myself and winning, and how much winning and losing means. But when the ownership group or an owner or someone in the front office reacts in this type of magnitude, then there needs to be some sort of swift action taken. I think the fine is just enough, though, $300,000. I know it's pocket change, though, for this owner. However, though, the conduct is unacceptable. I don't care if it's your own fan base who you're having an issue with, or for that matter, the visiting fan base. You have to be above their level. I mean, if you're the owner of this organization, then you are expected to, of course, act in a very professional manner. But at the same time, though, I can definitely understand in some very small way. Again, I'm not condoning this action one bit, because, again, I think you have to hold the owners to a higher degree or a higher standard of professionalism and in demeanor and actions, or action in general, with how they are. But I do know that the losing can take a toll, though, and especially when you probably had some kind of expectations of getting better and improving on the last couple years. But when it radiates through the entire organization, and when I say entire organization, this includes Charlotte FC, who made some strides this past season. I think they got into the postseason for MLS, but got knocked out, though, in that wild card game that they added earlier, or that they added this past offseason. But the fact, though, that there's been 5 coaches shown the door, though, in David Tepper's very brief 4 to 5 year ownership of the Panthers and now Charlotte FC, though, one has to wonder about the culture within the ownership group itself, though, that now this becomes a microcosm, or this becomes a bigger issue for the single fact of, well, the owner here is out here hurling drinks at fans that aren't rooting for his team because the pent-up frustration of the team losing, or player personnel, the coaching staff. But again, though, at the same time, when, though, does the ownership get questioned? Why is it always, players and coaches who seem to be getting the brunt end of a stick, though, but it's never the owners who seem to be getting the brunt of a stick, though? I mean, they get called out a lot, though, for being cheap. The Spanos family, the McCaskies with the Bears, and I would even think David Tepper, though, he's bought these 2 teams, though, and has not had that return on his dollar yet, though. But I believe that the NFL handled this probably the best way they could, though, because what really could you do to an owner? If this was the team GM acting in this way, or a player throwing a Gatorade bottle into the stands, then I can understand a suspension for like the head coach or the players. But then I do think, though, that FOS is certainly right, though, here, and their writer who wrote the story, David Rumsey, there's really no standard, I would say, or no precedent set in stone about how would the league conduct disciplining an owner if they act out of character or out of turn in this case, where, again, David Tepper's out here hurling drinks into the crowd after his team loses for like the 15th or 16th time this season, and they have one victory underneath their belt, blowing out a head coach after 11 games in Frank Reich. That I do believe that this might open the door, though. That now I do believe that after this spat with David Tepper, now want us to wonder about what the league does, though, if more owners begin kind of acting out of character like this, where they start hurling drinks. I think that there was a bit of a video that went viral of Mark Davis getting into a bit of a verbal spat with Raider fans at SoFi Stadium during the first week of the season, I want to say. But again, there was really no precedent or no standards, I'd say, because I think that the NFL knows that, or that I think the owners know what the league expects of them when they are, in fact, out in public amongst the crowd or whatnot. Because I think we see a lot of videos like the owners that are amongst the fan base enjoying themselves, though. But again, I do believe that this does open up, or at least begins the discussions about, now that there may be similar penalties of some type, perhaps, that can now be levied against owners. Again, the last time that we saw this happen was 2009 when Bud Adams of the Titans made that gesture towards the fans, or towards a fan. But again, there's really no set in stone like policy in place or guidelines put in place about what in fact would happen if owners begin acting like immature children, basically. Again, they're filthy rich billionaires, yes. But I do, again, do not condone the actions of this owner whatsoever, because, again, I think the owners, once more, they are on not really a pedestal, but they have higher standards to live up to, maybe more than the coaching staff, maybe the players, because, again, being the owner of the ball club, you're expected to act like an executive at the office, where, again, you're supposed to be treating everyone, the right way, be engaging with the fan base, and, again, not really acting. Again, it's one thing to react after a big play, though, but I know that when the losses pile up, when the fan base is up at arms about the coach getting fired, you start firing coaches, trading players, and that when the losing takes its toll, though, you have to just kind of, in a way, like, take it on the chin. And you can't be acting in this matter where, again, you're hurling drinks, you're hurling water at fans, let alone fans of the team who's beating your brains in on the field of play 26-0. Now, if that was in regards to even the players, or maybe even the fan base, the Carolina fans, if this happened to, then that would be like, I think, even worse, I would say, than what we have seen here, or saw here, I should say. But again, folks, after the viral video had surfaced of Panthers owner David Tepper hurling a drink into the crowd towards a Jaguars fan on Sunday, he has been officially fined by the NFL front office $300,000. In part, the NFL said via statement that the owner's actions and conduct were unacceptable, saying in part that all NFL personnel are expected to conduct themselves at all times in ways that respect our fans and favorably reflect on their team and the NFL, which I think, though, again, goes to my point, though, about owners, in a way, they don't have a different set of rules to play by. But they certainly know, though, that the rules that they have, or that are with them, are different than the GM, the players, and coaches when it comes to conduct around the fan base. And also that David Tepper said via his statement separately away from the NFL, said he regrets his behavior and accepts the punishment, says that he should have let the stadium security handle any issues that arose rather than taking matters into his own hands. And I think it just kind of, in a way, goes a bit, again, small bit, goes to my thoughts, though, of terrible season, firing Frank Reich, Bryce Young's not look great, bad season, losing record, piling on what's been a mess, though, of 4 or 5 different coaches between the soccer team and the Panthers who've been canned during David Tepper's ownership group. And now that number 1 pick, though, that he probably could have used, though, to maybe draft a Caleb Williams or a different player, or a different quarterback maybe, or draft a big-name player, that now goes to Chicago, who has 2 first-round picks now. So in a way, it's a cascading effect, though, or that domino effect, where things seem to only be getting worse at this rate right now for the Carolina Panthers at this point in time and at this juncture. But once more, folks, again, Panthers owner David Tepper fined $300,000 after a viral video he rose of him throwing a drink in the direction of a Jaguars fan on Sunday, during the Jaguars' 26-0 victory over the Panthers on Sunday. Moving on, folks, to the professional world of women's pro hockey. The ongoing rise of women's sports has hit another breakthrough moment with this week's on-ice debut of the newly formed PWHL, or the Professional Women's Hockey League. Born out of a merger last year between the former Premier Hockey Federation and the Professional Women's Hockey Players Association, or PWHPA, the 6-team PWHL is looking for a similar type of cultural and business impact that has been achieved already in the past year by both the Women's National Basketball Association and the National Women's Soccer League. And early indications show that the PWHA is already on its way after just 2 days of game play. The league's first ever game was played on Monday in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, at the Mattamy Athletic Center, better known as Maple Leaf Gardens, drawing a sellout crowd of over 2,537 fans. And the PWHL Toronto's franchise has already sold out their entire season seat element for its 2024 home schedule. Sellouts are also expected for the initial games in Ottawa and Montreal played last night, and the lower bowl of the Minnesota Wild's home venue of Xcel Energy Center in St. Paul is also set to be filled for the home debut of the team in Minnesota on Saturday. Ottawa, in particular, played on Tuesday and lost in OT to Montreal 3-2, but still, though, set a new global attendance record for women's pro hockey for its home opener, as they had over 8,397 fans, though the record may not last long if the league continues to gain much more traction. The first ever PWHL game was played in Toronto on Monday, as mentioned. It began with a clear nod to history with women's sports trailblazer and tennis icon Billie Jean King partaking in a ceremonial face-off. Billie Jean King, by the way, is also a member of the PWHL's board of directors. Toronto's team's head coach, Troy Ryan, told Reuters that saying in part, "I've been a part of world championships, club championships, Olympic games, and it was probably more emotion surrounding this one than any of those gold medal games. There is so much riding on the situation. It is such a long time coming, and so many people fought for the opportunity," open and close quote. The league is also receiving logistical and operational, but not financial backing by the NHL. Mark Walter, the lead owner of the LA Dodgers and an investor in several other teams, including the Lakers, is the primary backer for the PWHL. Further aiding at this rate is new completed media deals with MSG, Nesson, and Bally Sports North up in the U.S., with CBC, Radio Canada, TSN, and RDS, and Sportsnet in Canada also helping out, while the American packs are regionally focused on the New York, Boston, and Minneapolis markets, while Canada and their deals are national-level agreements. For so long, folks, we have seen women's hockey try to get and find their niche within women's soccer and women's basketball. And so many times that leagues have come and folded. But I do know that the merger has seemed to work out right now. Now, I do want to first and foremost, though, express my deepest sympathies and condolences to Matt Nelson, to Paul Baker, to Ryan Burgess, three of my great colleagues in the upper Northeast who were PA announcers in the former PHF, or the Premier Hockey Federation, with the Metropolitan Reveteers, the Buffalo Buttes, and I believe the Boston Pride, who all lost their jobs because of this merger between the two leagues. And it pains me seeing colleagues of mine lose jobs after multiple years serving in the roles that they were in the former league. My only small concern here, if there's any concern here, though I said on my last recent episode of Press Row that 2023 was a great banner year for women's sports, and now here we are getting 2024 off and running with a great debut of this brand new women's hockey league between two sellout crowds already between Ottawa on Tuesday and a sellout in Toronto on Monday, and tonight I believe and I think Wednesday night, coming up here at roughly 4 o'clock local time, Hillary Knight and Boston have their home opener at UMass Lowell's Arena. So already the merger seems to have worked, and already fans have bought in. Between television deals being in place, those out of market like myself can watch games on YouTube. Great attendance already. Seeing the players who are part of the league sharing old photos of them like, hey, look at how far that the game has come, though. And I think that the head coach for Toronto, Troy Ryan said it right, though, again, having been a part of world championships in their career, club championships, the Olympics, and that they felt more emotion for this than any gold medal game because so much is riding, I think, on the PWHL to succeed, and that so many players have fought tooth and nail, working day jobs to supplement their league income from playing the game that they love the most, though, and that it finally came to fruition. The only small concern I have, and I know this is barely 3 days old of this league being around, though, along with the fact, though, that this is their inaugural season, I'm sure that things will get tweaked and stuff, like everything else I've been saying about the in-season tournament for the NBA and baseball rule changes. However, my small concern here, though, is that the PWHL, though I know that they're doing their own original six right now in 6 markets in the upper Northeast again and in Minnesota. Again, Minnesota, Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal, Boston, and New York. The concern I have right now, and once more, I know that this is only day 3 of the league existing, playing-wise at least. My only concern, though, is that you are not catering to a full-wide hockey audience. I get the fact of having your original 6, though, in the markets close up to what the NHL did about 100-plus years ago. But almost in a way, I kind of feel like Matt and Paul and Ryan, though they're in those markets, but living in a non-traditional hockey market and state like San Diego, California, though we've had minor league hockey here for a long time, since the 40s and into the 60s, into the 70s, into the 90s, and now here. The concern level I have, though, is that a lot of hockey fans are being left out kind of high and dry right now because it just seems like that right now the PWHL is only catering to 6 areas and only catering to fans in the Northeast or up in Minnesota, which is leaving a lot of hockey fans who want to get their hockey fix and want to support women's sports and support women's hockey. They're kind of in a way high and dry. That's why I really appreciated Haley Skamura, who scored the first ever goal in PWHL Ottawa team history on Tuesday, who was a guest of mine on a former podcast network of mine, that I loved and respected what Haley and the PWHA were doing, the Professional Women's Hockey Players Association, the PWHPA, I should say. They would at least go and tour and play like the Globetrotters or Bananas and would go and play their round-robin games in different markets. I know before COVID hit, they were going to play one of their dates in Glendale because Amanda Kessel's brother Phil was with the Coyotes at the time, and that there have been 3 very well-attended games in Anaheim and in Los Angeles for the national team, on top of a great crowd in Seattle recently, that you would think, though, that knowing that you could sell the product nationwide, and you can certainly sell it to the fan base in Arizona, Orange County, Los Angeles, and Seattle, part of me just wonders, though, is this league going to cater to a whole nationwide audience, or are you only going to cater to the cities right now that you have teams in and not begin to look elsewhere? Because I know that it might be a bit hard, though, logistically to make it work, though, with like a full-blown, 14-team, 16-team, 20-team league already. But that would be my only small concern. I am fully, folks, backing this league, even though, again, I've seen a lot of my friends lose jobs in the, within this sport of women's hockey. Players that I follow or know that are no longer playing because of the merger. Players, though, and I do, though, want to applaud the PWHL real quick for actually extending an olive branch out to players who were playing in the PHF who may have had their remarks perhaps taken out of context about the league folding, but they were given the chance to sign with a team in this league. So at least through 3 days right now, I'm fully on board in investing time and effort to watch games and root for players or root for teams. But again, though, as an outsider looking in with a team not in this league right now, it's hard for me to like actually pick my favorite team because I love so many of the players out there. Like, I love Hillary Knight. She plays with Boston. I love Abby Rock. I love Sarah Nurse. I love Marie-Philippe Poulin. I love all these big-name players. Of course, I love Haley Skamura. But it's hard, though, I think, to really grasp the sport right now when there's no local team nearby and every team right now is in a market miles and miles and miles away. Now, again, I don't want to sound like I'm the grumpy old man, but I think for the league's long sustained growth and health, I think though as years go on though, and that the interest remains there, the fans keep coming to games. So again, please keep coming. From what I've seen already though, sellout crowd for the first ever game. Ottawa had over 8,300 people at their game on Tuesday. I think Boston's expecting a very big crowd too for their first game. I know Minnesota's going to draw very well on Saturday at Xcel. I mean, the fact that they're playing at Xcel Energy Center with a Wild play, they're going to have the whole lower bowl basically sold out. That's great and all. But I also do think that's a lot of hockey fans out there who want to fully jump on board and get behind this league feel left out of the equation right now because there's no real team close. Like, I will basically watch how players that I know or love and respect, how they're doing. Like, I'm going to watch watch Hillary Knight's team play in about 40 plus minutes or so on this Wednesday and watch their game to see how they look and how they draw, but also watch the game though to see how they're going to look though for the winter games in 2026. But again, it just kind of feels like it's a rock in a hard place. Because, again, I know it's only 3 days old, folks, but part of me still does wonder, will other fans begin resenting? Much like, again, maybe, again, to their credit, again, Matt and Ryan and Paul, who, again, were left out of the equations with their clubs when the leagues merged earlier in 2023. Again, I can totally understand that, again, where you feel like you're being forced out because of a merger. They didn't pick your city. So I totally, again, sympathize so much, though, with Ryan, his wife, Melissa, and Paul and Matt, who were a part of the PHF for quite a while, if not for recently. And again, kind of feeling like, though, that you got let go because your market wasn't chosen. But again, but once more, folks, I am totally backing this league. But there is that little small slither of me that's like, yeah, but they're only catering to what they think would probably help year one. That they know that the market won't fail. Again, New York, Boston, Minnesota, Ottawa, Toronto, Montreal, that, okay, you played it safe for year one, though. But part of me does have to, wonder, though, or wonder aloud, or at least even speculate with how the game has grown out here. And again, I'm speaking for myself here and seeing it, and kind of seeing it over, 15 years in the sport, but about 20 years roughly plus being a hockey fan since I was in first grade in 2000. So 24 years of being a hockey fan, that the game has grown so much out here between NHL. Obviously the NHL is one thing, again, with the Ducks winning in 2007, the Kings in 12 and 14, the Sharks, going to the Cup final in 2016, the influx of California players who've been drafted. But from a women's hockey perspective, I look at it more of like before the national team played in Seattle fairly recently, Anaheim, California was the highest attended game in February of 2020. They had about, I think, 13,000 plus people at the Pond when Team USA played Canada and won the rivalry series in overtime that night, thanks to Megan Bozak with the game-winning goal. That part of me does begin to wonder, though, that after this original six, phase, do they follow suit with a next six, like LA or Orange County or like Southern California or the Bay Area, Seattle, Arizona, Vegas? Do you begin looking at other avenues? Because part of me does think, though, if Mark Walter, filthy rich billionaire who's spent $1 billion on two big name players with the Dodgers, if Mark Walter is a part of this group, though, I don't see how he can't put his foot down and say, hey, look, I'm backing your league. I want a team in Los Angeles. The other big thing here, though, as well, is I love, though, seeing the NHL players backing this league. Because, folks, a lot of times in my time covering women's sports, though, for the past several years, I was always, you're always led to believe that the male counterparts in the NBA or NHL or even MLS, they don't care about the women's product, though. And they certainly, I think, do, in fact, support them. I think that we have seen the great influx, though, of players. Cole Caulfield, who came out and really was like on board with the Montreal team, like players who have played in that market, certainly, definitely are on board for this, though. But I do think, though, again, I am fully backing the PWHL again because I love seeing players who I, have either formed relationships with again, like Haley Skamura, who's playing in Ottawa, or Hillary Knight, or Sarah Nurse, or Abby Rock. Like seeing all the big name Canadian and USA stars who play who play every year for the national team play. It's just kind of hard, though, to root for an actual team. I'm more, I think I'm more that way with women's sports in general, minus the NWSL, because we have a team here in San Diego. But like the WNBA, I root for Candace Parker. So I've rooted for LA, Chicago, and Vegas, along with the fact that Kelsey Plum is from San Diego, who's playing for Vegas. That it's hard, though, when you're not in a women's sports market like San Diego, though we have pro volleyball coming here in the newly formed Volleyball Federation playing at Viejas Arena next month. It's hard, though, to become a fan of a team where there's no team in your market, if that makes any sense. And I would think, though, that as more of a time goes on here, I would really love to see this league, the PWHL, begin try to establish teams away from traditional hockey markets. Again, I know it's I know it's only 72 hours older than playing games, but I really would love to see like them take a chance on Los Angeles, San Jose, Anaheim, San Diego, somewhere in Arizona. Like I would really love to see more traditional hockey markets represented on the women's stage, because you definitely have the market for it. Again, between how, and at least based off of rivalry series games that I've gone to in Anaheim and in Los Angeles, again, the crowds were well over 10,000. A lot of, girls teams were out there. A lot of, big names were out there. Again, Blake Bolden, Molly Shooks, all the big name women's hockey trailblazers were at the last game I went to when Team USA played at Crypto.com Arena last December in 2022 that I was at least. That you definitely have fans out there who want to support the league, but it's hard to do when they don't have a team to cling on to and ride or die with. Again, I'm more ride or die with players I know who are playing in this league again, like a Haley Skamura, like a Hillary Knight, like a, again, like players like that. That's more of why I'm watching, is the big name studs who are out there. But it's hard, though, to really, like I said, fully embrace the product again when there's no team to embrace in your home market. So after the first couple of years, I'd like to see them begin to try to expand and try to cater to hockey fans across the entire country. And again, not try to cater to the big market cities, though, in the upper Northeast. And I don't want to, again, single out those markets, though. But again, there's a big, vibrant fan base who wants to support this product here, and it's a little hard to do when you can't, again, fully do it because it's not accessible in your market. Again, you'd have to fly to St. If I wanted to go to a game, I'd have to fly out to St. Paul, Minnesota to watch Boston play, Minnesota or stuff of that caliber. And my good man Trevor Williams says you cannot leave out Philadelphia as an expansion team for this new league. I would think so as well, Trev. Again, and I think that, and I do think, though, Trev, before we move on to our next topic here, I do believe that there will be a blueprint put forth. I'd give it like 2 to 4 years after the first couple seasons that we begin to find out where the league does, in fact, go. Because I know that is going to be the next big thing. Is, okay, you've had a couple good years here. Where are you going next? You're going to go to LA? You're going to go to Phoenix? You're going to go to Vegas? What are you going to do? More and more of that along the way. With that in mind, folks, recapping the New Year's Day college football playoffs. The committee got it right. And Fox mounting massive rights bid, perhaps, who knows? We should give it up for the CFP selection committee. Despite all the outrage from Florida State players, coaches, and fans, the relieved committee dialed up one of the best TV shows in years with Michigan's thrilling OT victory over Alabama on Monday, and the telecast had it all. How good was it? Alabama and Michigan averaged over 27.2 million viewers this season for the Rose Bowl game at this rate. And also for the fact that numbers, per this report from, the Texas and Washington game averaged about 18.4 million viewers for that game at this rate. And meanwhile, the team at the CFP committee picked instead of FSU, Alabama, took number one, Michigan, to overtime. And as Doug Gottlieb said on Fox Sports Radio today, you can't get any closer than overtime, open and close quote. There's also some scuttling of talk here that Fox Sports is weighing what they're calling a massive bid to snatch all or parts of the CFP away from ESPN. The strategy will make sense for Fox as the network's Big Noon Kickoff pregame show has closed the TV ratings gap against ESPN's iconic College Game Day, and Fox's gambit is to place its top games in the noon Saturday window rather than in prime time has proven to be a brilliant programming stroke by the company's head of strategy and analytics, Mike Mulvihill. The tell here came when Fox CEO Lachlan Murdoch warned Wall Street that it was highly unlikely that he'd bid on the NBA against ESPN and Warner Brothers and even Discovery Sports. Per sources, Murdoch and company are building a war chest for its other right negotiations. And at the same time, another source vowed that Fox would not overpay for the CFP. The network is counting on ESPN's newly discussed and newly disciplined approach to right negotiations. I, folks, am probably one of the very few people who can admit when they're wrong, at least in the podcast industry. Though I still have my thoughts, though, that I believe that Michigan should not have been allowed to get in because of what has been going on with Jim Harbaugh, with the 6 games that he missed for the recruiting violations and with the sign stealing scandal. Part of me still feels that way. But regardless, the committee got this right. Now, I also know that I did say, though, on here when the outrage came out from Florida State, that I felt like FSU deserved to get in, as did Georgia. Florida State is nothing more than a bunch of sore losers. As I said on this program the week that I had the big rant about the fact that I thought that Michigan should have been excluded, Florida State, you proved me right by being a bunch of immature, sore losers. Going out there, having 20 players not play in the game, and getting absolutely waxed by Georgia 63-6. Because I feel like, though, that proved to me that program is a bunch of sore losers. Along with the fact about how the governor's office reacted, putting aside the money to sue the CFP committee, the attorney general's office getting involved, Florida State proved to the nation that they are a group of sore losers. But I will say, folks, I watched those 2 games. Again, this is the only time really that I watch football in general if I'm not working the games for FCS football. That Rose Bowl game delivered. Despite, again, maybe what I said about Jim Harbaugh, both of those games delivered thrilling finishes. And I absolutely love the drama. I love the drama of the Wolverines and Tide going to OT. And I also loved how Washington really proved to be the 2 seed. And Texas gave them all they could give them. They almost made an amazing comeback at the very end there, losing by 13. But in a way, though, one looks, though, at that Orange Bowl, though, as, they did get this right. But I do think, though, in a way, that had the roles been reversed, I think we all would have probably agreed, though, that if it was reversed, or if it was Bulldogs and Seminoles in, say, Michigan or Texas or UW or Bama out, they would not have reacted in that way. And again, like I said, though, folks, last week or a couple weeks ago when I had the big rant about, my thoughts of Michigan not getting in and that FSU deserved to get in, My main concern, though, was that one or both of those teams in the Orange Bowl would not have played to their full potential. And Florida State proved it right then and there by the number of players who opted not to play in the bowl game and the fact that they were blown out by 60. The fact that Georgia players were going live on Instagram during the course of the game because it was such a big, because of the scoreline being so far out of control. But regardless, I believe that any notion out there about the committee didn't get it right about, oh, Florida State should have gotten in. They had more adversity. Georgia should have gotten in. They lost one game in 30 tries. You know, maybe my thoughts of Michigan not getting in because of their head coach getting popped for 2 different offenses of the rule book in the same season. I can admit when I'm wrong, and I was wrong. Michigan deserved to be in there, as did Bama, and certainly so did UT and UW. Again, I am admitting here that I was wrong, that Michigan did not deserve to get in because of what had occurred with Coach Jim Harbaugh. And the ratings and viewership certainly make me look like a fool and an idiot. Nearly 27.2 million viewers watched, which it made it one of the top 10 most watched cable TV telecasts of all time. And then UW in Texas, their thrilling ending, racked up about 18.4 million. And ESPN drew its most watched CFP semifinals in 6 seasons with about 22.6 million average viewers. Yes, I was wrong. Part of me, though, still does not believe, though, that the Wolverines deserve to get in. But I admit when I'm wrong. I don't act like a co-host of ours on this network and try to cover up and hide and not expose myself when I'm wrong. I own up to it. And I own up to what I said, that I did not believe that the Wolverines were worthy of being in because of the violations of the NCAA rules. Though a bit of me still does believe that there is something there. But now that is water under the bridge. I apologize to Coach Harbaugh. I apologize to my Michigan fans out there who may have disagreed with my comments. But again, I will sit here and admit that I was wrong. And the numbers don't lie. And now, though, more than anything else, the Cinderella story now of the Pac-12 Conference reaching the final game in its final season, and the fact we will have an unbeaten national champion crowned next Monday in Houston. Boy, oh boy, I am ecstatic for this game. Now, I know you're going to say, wait a second, you don't like football, but you're ecstatic. I'm ecstatic because I love watching the bowl season, because I love seeing programs who don't get respect, like James Madison University in Tulane or Liberty, get to play on the national stage. Again, I view it more from my own perspective about being at a FCS school and in a mid-major conference of the West Coast Conference. I love the underdog teams that no one knows about getting their damn respect on national television. But at the end of the day, though, that may have been probably the most exhilarating day probably in recent memory of the 4-team era for the CFP. Again, I admit I was wrong. I solemnly swear I was wrong about Michigan not being number one and should not have been allowed in. I literally have my hand up, and I'm telling you right now that I solemnly swear that I did not believe that. And I also swear that I was wrong and that I apologize for those comments. For the simple fact that those 2 games delivered in a big way. And also, wow. It's like I said earlier, though I thought Florida State, I was on your side. I was on your side. But when you go out there and lay an egg like that, though, and act like a group of sore losers, I get the fact maybe still the heartbreak being fresh, though, about not making the CFP. Still, though, Florida State is a bunch of sore losers for basically, in a way, going out there, not caring, playing a bunch, playing what they had left on their roster. The influx of guys leaving and going into the portal or sitting out the game. What a flat out embarrassment. Florida State, you are a flat out embarrassment. Georgia went out there and played that game like it was a damn playoff game. And the scoreboard doesn't lie. A plus 60-point differential victory because the other team was a bunch of sore losers and a bunch of wussies and pussies out there who didn't want to play in the game because they felt like they got screwed. Florida State, I was on your side. But after what I just saw, though, no more sympathy. Laughable for the fact that I don't care if you didn't have 20 players. You should have done what Georgia did and went out there and played your tail off and tried to win the game. Instead of sulking and pouting and whining and bitching and moaning about how you didn't get in. Not a good look. On top of the fact, though, of that the state government was suing the CFP. It's been a rough couple weeks for Florida State. Yet, though, Kirby Smart had his team ready to play. Mike Norvell, not even close. Part of me does feel bad for Coach Norvell, though, because he had to go through a lot, though, in regards to, the playoff snub and trying to rally his troops again, who were still, in a way, going through that heartbreak phase of not making it. But, man, what an insult to Florida State fans out there. You get to a bowl game, basically, in your own market in Miami. It's practically a damn home game. And you lay an egg in that fashion? Purely unacceptable. Now you see why people have been laughing at you and why you didn't get in. Tough couple days for Florida State. In the end, though, folks, 2 great games. We get one more great game to end off the college football season coming up on Monday between Michigan and Washington. But again, I wanted to go back quickly before we get to our last talking point here for the day. Wowzer. This is quite a game that I'm really excited about. Mainly excited for the fact who wrote the script out there? Who's sitting around out there writing about this very unprecedented, ever-evolving, changing landscape of college athletics? Who wrote him a script, though, about the Pac-12 conference on its deathbed getting one final shot to ride off into the sunset with a championship victory? I love Michael Penix Jr. He was my Heisman vote or Heisman pick if I would have gotten a vote or if I had a vote. So a very high-octane air raid offense against a very smash-mouth Jim Harbaugh-led defense. Monday's going to be spicy. Monday's going to be fun. And who knows, we may have a special program on Monday for that CFP final here on C2C. But boy, as someone who is not a big football fan of the Americanized product between college and the NFL minus FCS football, boy, I'm eager. I'm eager. I'm excited to see how the high-octane UW Huskies and their air raid offense match up with a very hard-nosed, smash-mouth, well-disciplined, well-played defense led by Jim Harbaugh. And I'll say it one more time, folks. I know that I expressed my opinion that I believe that Michigan should not have been given a chance to play in the CFP because of Harbaugh's track record this season. But again, I have admitted here over the last roughly 15 or 20 minutes here, Callan McClurg got it wrong. And that Florida State should be utterly embarrassed for being a bunch of sore losers and getting absolutely trucked by Georgia, who played that game like it was a damn playoff game, and it meant something. But boy, Monday's going to be fun. Again, folks, we'll have more perhaps about that potential tease of a program during the course of that game on Monday. We'll see how it goes. With that in mind, folks, I wanted to get to one other story from FOS today. The staff of FOS picked some of the biggest stories that we'll be talking about throughout the course of 2024, and I was very intrigued, though, by a couple of what they had picked here. With that in mind, folks, again, these stories were picked, though, by the Front Office Sports' writing staff, and the story was put out back on Tuesday, so just a day ago, about some of the biggest stories that we'll be talking about in 2024. The first one comes about the details of the expanded college football playoff. That is sure to be one as we, in fact, near the game on Monday. But the details of an expanded college football playoff will bring millions in extra revenue to CFP Plus schools. But just a year away now from the new format, the organization has yet to decide upon several major details and hurdles, including which broadcaster will air the first round of games, how bids will be awarded, and what the distribution of revenue will also look like. Sadly, the breakup of the Pac-12 has also contributed to this lack of clarity. I am interested in that. I think I misspoke, actually, about the format. If it's what I think it would be, it would actually be the top 4 seeds would get a bye, not the top 5. Top 4 would get a bye. Seeds 5 through 12 would play a wild card game, essentially. And the higher seeds, so seeds 5, 6, 7, and 8, would host the game on campus. Then they would go to the actual semi or quarterfinal round, then go all the way to the national title game. So I did misspeak about that last week. We wanted to clarify that. But I do agree about, who's going to broadcast. I would kind of think, though, that it may be, I would think that the best route here would be like this. Rotate like you do the Super Bowl. Go between Fox, NBC, ESPN, maybe. At least give every network a shot to host one game on their airwaves. Where, again, I think it would depend, though, about how the money is distributed. But I would think, though, rotating cycle of who hosts on TV. Much like how the Super Bowl rotates between CBS and NBC and Fox every year. So I would definitely go that route at this rate. Next big story, college athlete employment. Several ongoing lawsuits at the federal level, including 2, have argued that college athletes should be considered employees, and 2 labor law causes at the National Labor Relations Board, one concerning USC football and basketball players, and another tied to Dartmouth University's men's basketball players, are attempting to force the same conclusion. Legal sparring over amateurism will likely last at least for another year or 2, but both the pro-athlete employment side and the anti-employment side will appeal as far as they can, but will likely get at least one ruling on athlete employment from the Third Circuit of Courts Appeals or the NLRB sometime soon. NILs have become a thing. That is where I believe that we're at here right now, along with the fact, though, of the transfer rule, as I said, might have to go out the window again because we have seen so many players. I also think, though, that you have to, shut down the portal while a season is still going on. That was the one big talking point that I think that CBS talked about during the Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl in El Paso. That is a bit of a disservice. The fact that the portal was open in the middle of the ongoing bowl season was a very big mistake. I get the opt-outs, though, like Caleb Williams, though, again, not wanting to risk injury with the draft coming up and stuff. But to have the portal open during the bowl season, again, I know it's a very long, dragged-out, slow process that no one out there likes. But that really killed a lot of clubs and teams. That is not, though, Florida State, an excuse as to why you lost by 60. But I do believe that is a bit of a telltale sign, though, that the portal may have to be relooked at, where you cannot allow anyone to transfer until their season officially ends. And when I say season, I mean when the title game is complete, January 8th. 12:01 a.m., January 9th, you can freely begin transferring, but not in the middle of the season. Big story 3, the future of pro golf. Pro golf still has a ton of questions to answer about their future. In the meantime, the PGA season kicks off this week in Maui, and the Saudi Arabian-backed LIV Tour kicks off next month in Mexico. Will this be the last season where these two entities are separate? Will any more major winners jump to LIV? When the Masters rolls around this spring, all eyes will be on defending champion Jon Rahm, who accepted what is believed to be a $500 million deal to join the LIV golf circuit. How will that move end up shaping the future of golf? Gray area. Because of how the PGA Tour has basically, in a way, like revoked licenses, they have kicked players out of tournaments. They have said, you can't come. We don't care that you played for us. You're with, it's almost like that heel face in pro wrestling. We're viewing PGA as the good guys, the face in this case, and we're viewing LIV as the heel, the dirty doms of the world, for example. Because of the fact, as I said here, when we talked about Jon Rahm defecting to the LIV circuit, the Saudi Arabian money, blood on their hands, human right issues, all that sort of stuff, though, crude oil and whatnot. But one has to wonder, though, if in fact that these two would actually merge. Would this become XFL, USFL to become the UFL? Who knows? But I think, like I said, though, as if more big name guys keep leaving the PGA circuit for LIV, then the PGA Tour is in deep crap, basically. So one would have to wonder, though, does the PGA survive after this season? I think they will, for the fact it's the PGA Tour. Yeah, they've lost big-name guys to LIV, but again, LIV's been having TV contract issues, sponsorship problems again. The Saudi Arabian money is also a big talking point as well. But we'll see, though, what really does transpire. The next big story for 2024, the big city Olympic game question. There's pressure, then there is what Paris 24 organizers have faced. Ongoing months of turmoil, bad publicity, local rioting, corruption allegations, and budgeting concerns. The heat is on for the French capital to not only stage a great event this summer, but in some respects, though, restore the Olympic movement. The last half decade for the IOC has been brutal. Both the 2020 and 22 Tokyo and Beijing games were marred by the pandemic and record low ratings on U.S. television. And right now, the 2032 games in Brisbane are already facing budgeting problems. A bigger question does arise, though. Are the Olympics becoming to collapse underneath their own weight and complexity? Instead of being too big to fail, are the Olympics now too big to succeed? Look for those Paris organizers to project a sense of optimism and success in any way possible, writes Eric Fisher of FOS. The main culprit that I believe, maybe two culprits. The two culprits that I believe hindered the American TV ratings in 20 and 22 are simple as this. Much of the public, to their credit and their own opinion and their views and thoughts, were not on board for athlete activism surrounding issues plaguing the country, but also time change. If you wanted to watch a big name event, you had to stay up till like 4 o'clock in the morning because of the time change between Tokyo and Beijing. I remember very well when my folks were in Japan this past August. I had my alarm set for 3 a.m. every day while they were gone because that was the time of day that they were able to, because that's when it was already like 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, and they would be calling or texting, seeing how I was doing and stuff and how the dog was doing. Time change was a factor. On top of, again, those out there who have opinions, to their credit again, and I respect those opinions, good, bad, ugly, or indifferent, maybe athletes pulling in political talk into the games, protesting peacefully, was also a very big turnoff for fans out there. Again, to your credit, again, if you chose not to watch, I totally understand and totally get it. But I also, though, think that the bigger issue I think that we're having here is the fact that the Olympic Games have gone to countries who can't make it work. I think back to all those times that, like in Rio de Janeiro, the games went off without a hitch, though. Yet, though, all those buildings built for the games, the arenas and the pools and all that, have gone to waste. That's why I'm grateful that Salt Lake City has still kept their spots open for the winter time from 2002. That and I think we all agree here, the Olympics should only go to markets or to countries who have the infrastructure already in place, have the money in place, and have somewhat of fan-friendly time zones or time slots for NBC to put the events live on TV. So I do believe that there is pressure. There is pressure in 2024 in Paris. And I would even say that there is pressure in 2026 in Italy because they're having their own problems right now with lack of room for certain, I believe, the luge and the bobsled and skeleton. Those events may have to be performed and played in Lake Placid, New York. So I do think that it's going to be a big year for the Olympics. They have to deliver for one thing. On top of the fact we have to deal with an election coming up, we're dealing with global tension, geopolitics. That adds a bit of a sense of malaise to the games. But I think, though, the Olympics have to be put in countries and markets like Los Angeles, Salt Lake City, who have the infrastructure already in place, and buildings or arenas or stadiums don't have to be built and then left to rot when the games leave and never come back. Our next big story. Can sports still be sustained professionally in Las Vegas, Nevada? We all know that Vegas is all about glitz and glamour, and the city's looking to put on a major encore after their blockbuster year last season. Just a year ago, brought a pair of titles for both the Las Vegas Aces of the WNBA, who won back-to-back titles, and the Golden Knights, who won the Stanley Cup and fulfilled team owner Bill Foley's promise of a title in 6 seasons. It also brought the debut of the Las Vegas Grand Prix, the MSG Sphere, the inaugural NBA in-season tournament, and a deal for the Oakland A's to relocate there within the next 5 or 4 seasons. Next up is the Super Bowl in February, a return for Formula One, and likely repeat engagement for the NBA. But still, though, big questions do remain. Will the A's ballpark project actually stay on track amid an ongoing talk of a potential referendum challenge? And can the 40th largest media market in the U.S. truly handle all of this sports growth over the long haul in long term? Fair assessment. Very fair assessment. Because I believe, like my man Ryan Pond said about L.A. being oversaturated with sports, Vegas now entering into potentially Major League Baseball in 4 years. That stadium deal is under a lot of scrutiny from a teachers association trying to get public money towards public education in Vegas. The talk of the small acreage of the property where the Tropicana's had to build the ballpark, that is a concern. However, I would probably still think that Vegas will be fine because, honestly, though the Raiders are there, that is a city anchored by women's pro basketball and anchored by the NHL, and I really could care less what anyone out there says. Yeah, the NFL is there. Yeah, the Super Bowl's going there. Yeah, it's going to help offseason tourism. But the Raiders not winning does not help the cause for Vegas sports fans who can, again, look at who's been more successful. Hey, look, we have a Stanley Cup team winning at T-Mobile Arena. Hey, look, we got a pretty good women's pro basketball team led by a big-name coach, backed by the Raiders owner in Mark Davis. We got a pretty good cast and crew here with Kelsey Plum, Candace Parker, Asia Wilson. I am, though, a bit weary about what might happen with that public vote, though, for the A's and their stadium. Because the A's will do all this work to potentially get all 30 owners on board as they did back in November. And then something falls through and they can't make the move officially official. Despite the A's, despite the Raiders, despite the Super Bowl, Vegas will still be able to sustain this, I think. As long as the A's and Golden Knights still keep performing. Now, I'm not talking about winning the title every season. I'm talking about, though, great regular seasons, deep playoff runs, winning titles, of course. Those are the main two engines driving Las Vegas. It's almost in a way like forget the Raiders, forget Formula One, forget NBA expansion, forget the Sphere. The Aces and Golden Knights are anchoring the Vegas sports fandom right now, and that is where I think I would put my priority still. If I'm at a poker table and I'm given the chance to go all in on on things I would like. I'm going all in on the Aces and all in on the Golden Knights. I'm not really going all in with the Raiders because they can't seem to get out of their own way and win, or for that matter, the NFL in general. And I really can't put a lot of stock in the NBA or even in Major League Baseball. But I do think, though, that Vegas is going to be fine, though, despite what may or may not go right with the A's and with the NFL right now at this rate. The next big story: a full MLS season of Lionel Messi and his greatness with Inter Miami FC. Though his impact on Inter Miami was unprecedented, even for a few months, he gets an entire season in 2024 to make his mark on American soccer. So much so that Inter Miami is already the betting favorites to win next year's MLS Cup in 2024, and we'll also get the chance to defend their Leagues Cup title. Club leaders also envision revenue could hit about $200 million this season, which would be a new league-wide record. Look for the rest of the league to capitalize on his business, too, as fans from across the country flock to stadiums to glimpse the now 8-time Ballon d'Or winner this upcoming spring. If you joined me on the year in review recap last week before the New Year hit, I said that it's long overdue that MLS did not have a big name player look at the league and look elsewhere. But again, the fact, though, that you land Lionel Messi, again, probably the number one or 1B biggest name in soccer globally, along with Cristiano Ronaldo. The fact, though, that you land Lionel Messi in your league and what it's already done in just a couple of months of him playing, though he got hurt, though I know, has, I think, though, turned people who may not have been on the soccer bandwagon in this country almost all the way on board to the soccer hype train. The fact now that Miami becomes the betting favorites for next year's championship, defending their first title in club history with the Leagues Cup, revenue for the club may be over $200 million, which would be a brand new league-wide record. This is probably the biggest shot in the arm, though, that MLS has needed throughout franchise history and throughout league history, I should say, for that matter. Along with the fact, though, too, that the league goes to 30 teams in 2025 here in San Diego also helps a lot, though, that now you have a league on even pegging with the NBA and Major League Baseball when it comes to teams in your league at 30. You know, I think we all remember those days, though, where the league was at 10 teams for like 10 years, 12 teams, 14 teams. We track back to 10. That now I think that having Lionel Messi here, not just for Miami, think about all those fans, though, who are probably going to be going to games in LA or in Carson or in Colorado, or in San Jose, Vancouver, Seattle, Montreal, Toronto, that this will have a very good cascading effect, though, league-wide. Because, again, I remember the craze when David Beckham signed in 2007 with the LA Galaxy. Every home match was sold out in Carson. David had a great run there with the Galaxy, winning 2 or 3 titles in that time, or 2 titles in that time frame. I know he had Landon Donovan and Robbie Keane alongside for the ride. But that was probably the biggest splash MLS ever made, was getting David Beckham kind of still in his prime, probably post his prime with his clubs overseas, though. But it did have a great impact, though. It had sellout crowds in Carson. Every fan in a home market when the Galaxy came had to be at that match again, because at that time, we were seeing soccer loyalty or a royalty and greatness. And now that we have Lionel Messi in this league, statewide, nationwide, North American-wide, holy cow, what a great year it's going to be for MLS in 2024. The next big story, all eyes on the very expensive Los Angeles Dodgers. The Dodgers have spent over $1 billion on Shohei Ohtani and right-hand pitcher Yoshinobu Yamamoto to record-setting contracts. The Dodgers will likely lead this year in attendance again, and both Ohtani and Yamamoto will hit new levels of fame at Chavez Ravine. The team spending will also reignite debate among fans and team ownership over the merits of a salary cap, but it's World Series or bust for the Dodgers, and none of this will matter will not matter much without the Dodgers winning it all in 2024 and beyond. The last line said it right. You could spend all the money you want there, guys. But like Scottie Pippen said, it don't mean a thing without the ring. And again, 2020 was a one-off, playing a 60-game season confined to home ballparks, interleague play amongst the NL and NL West. You beat a team that didn't have any starting pitching. You beat a team who blew a 3-1 lead. You beat a team who has never won a World Series title either in their 2 appearances. Big whoop. You've spent this much money. Now it's a matter of, can you deliver? I think a lot of my friends who are Dodger fans would agree with me on that sentiment. Okay, we did all this spending to get Ohtani and Yamamoto and Glass now. For God's sakes, fellas, you got to get it done when it matters the most. And if the past couple years have been very indicative of the Dodgers, or past 3 years, I should say, other than 2020's one-off, you lose in the NLCS to Atlanta in 21. You let the lowly Padres beat you in 2022. And then you let the lowly Diamondbacks of all teams beat you in 2023 in a sweep. Again, you can spend all the money out there, and as we all know, that money doesn't necessarily buy you a championship. There's lofty expectations, and I would think if the Dodgers get off to a slow start, that fan base begins to panic and they start booing. They start not coming to games. And it could be tough waters. If the Dodgers aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing. Simple as that. The final big story. How will sports' relationship with X be in wake of ongoing issues on the former bird platform known as Twitter? The possible shift away from X to other social platforms could hinge on how pro leagues and teams weigh access to fans, with all the issues that led to Disney, Fox, Apple, and other brands pulling their ads off of X. But could an insider, though, like Adam Schefter or Shams Charania, choose one alternative platform this year to call home? And could leagues exercise their tremendous power via the DMCA, or the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, the old antidote of any use of this broadcast or pictures, descriptions, or accounts of the game without the league's consent is prohibited? Leagues could flood X with DMCA takedown notices for videos that they own rights to. By law, those notices would have to be addressed, likely with temporary or permanent bans, hobbling accounts that post replays within 2 days, or 2 weeks, I should say, unlike reporting other problematic content. Sports fans accustomed to video and news would also look elsewhere, and that could tilt the whole thing on its head. I have basically given up my Twitter account, my personal account. I do keep my sports announcing one up online to keep Twitter followers still up to date on games I'm announcing, and maybe engage with friends and colleagues on the web. But at this rate, I would probably not touch X with a 10-foot pole right now. With what has gone on, though, between Elon Musk buying the corporation for $44 billion, laying off 6,000 employees, the name change, the conspiracy theories being boasted, hate speeches again flourishing once more, losing several major advertisers. Though sports has been kind of keeping that relationship going, that may be one that has to be severed for a lot of the issues going on right now. And I think a lot of people have left that network for Threads or Mastodon or Facebook or IG. Other platforms have been used again. And I think, though, that the only major thing that will drop here is going to be Adam Schefter or Shams or Jeff Passan moving to Threads, for example. Would that be where the levee breaks and X is officially done, because sports fans will now defect away from there to go to a different platform for their news? When it comes to a breaking story about, hey, so-and-so signing here, so-and-so there, yada, yada, yada. But again, I think a lot of us out there have basically just been done with Twitter since the changeover, the name change, and all that garbage that has taken place. Again, I have not touched my personal profile on Twitter in quite a while. I remember, I think the last thing I engaged with on Twitter on that side of the spectrum was if, in fact, I pull my account off of Twitter, here is where you can find me. My other Twitter account, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, my podcast channel. That was more of like what I recall best, I think, saying. And that I really have no usage for Twitter right now, personally, at this rate and at this point in time. But with that, folks, great to be back with you here again. We are still right now working on getting some new things added here again. I know that we had talked about like a new video intro that's coming though in the coming days and weeks. We will, the folks, be off for Press Row tomorrow because of work for me. We'll be back with you folks next Monday, January 8th, to kick off our brand new Monday, Wednesday, Thursday schedule next week, beginning on Wednesday, or on Monday, I should say. We're back with you next Monday, January 8th. Again, in that 3 o'clock, 3:30 time slot. We will be with you folks Monday and Thursday next week back here on Coast to Coast Entertainment. And by the way, don't forget, we will be back with Sports Minute later tonight at 9 p.m. local time back here on the Coast to Coast Entertainment Network. But we thank you all for joining us. Thanks to Trevor and my good man, David Furker, who popped in at the last minute there with the sunglasses emoji. Thanks for you all for joining us. Thanks to everyone who also liked. Thanks to Steve Eicher, Trevor Williams, Ben Kearse, James Scott, and Isaiah Leung for tuning in today. We'll see you back here, folks, again, as mentioned, next Monday, back here for Press Row at around 3 o'clock or 3:30 Pacific time. We'll be back with you, though, tonight on Sports Minute at 9 p.m. Pacific time back here on your home for everything, on your home for all programming based off sports, entertainment, and life in between back here on C2C. With that, folks, good day. See you next time. Bye-bye.